big picture, looking forward, what is the prospect for real fundamental change, first on the Republican side, then on the Democratic side? Is there a real feeling that the Ohio plan, for example, as I understand it, given the rules, when you get to the convention floor, the big states are going to have a disproportionate number of votes, or a number of votes, a strength of vote equal to their numbers, and they'll probably knock it down. So is this really going to, does this really have legs even though we've gotten this far?
I think two things I think that are different this year, and David can speak to the rules. Do I think that the Ohio plan might be modified? It may be modified. I don't know. I mean, there's, I've not take, first of all, the Ohio plan is going to become the RNC plan, because the Ohio plan is a name that was put onto the plan by, because of who introduced those different plans. We had the NAS plan, we had the Texas plan, we had a Michigan plan, we had a Delaware plan, so it happened to be the one that got the most votes in the committee and was ultimately adopted with some modifications and amendments that were introduced at the committee meeting. So, do I expect some more? Perhaps. Do I think that we'll have a battle? Of course you will. But here's the thing. You got a lot of medium-sized states that have bought into the plan. I mean, not just Ohio, but places like Georgia and other states of similar size. California is opposed to it. Texas is opposed to it. Michigan's opposed to it, and they certainly have, but when you get to the Rules Committee, if what happened in 2000, with the big states threatening a floor fight and the presidential nominee, no presidential nominee wants a floor fight except for maybe in the Democrat convention, I don't know.
We don't want a floor fight. Yeah. That doesn't mean we won't have one.
Yeah. You know, the Bush folks killed it in the Rules Committee so that it didn't have the votes to come out onto the floor for a vote on any plan, the Delaware plan or any modification of it in 2000. Now this year, you have Senator McCain, who the presidential nominee on the Republican side, has certainly embraced the idea of Iowa and New Hampshire and South Carolina and Nevada going first, and has embraced that he doesn't think, as publicly stated, that any other candidate should have to go through what he went through. If you'd have taken a bet in November, last November, 60 days before the beginning of the process, that Senator McCain Senator Obama would be the nominees of their respective parties, you could have made a lot of money on that. I mean, let's be honest.
No, and don't lose sight of the fact that the nominees are going to have impact. You know, David said it perfectly early on in the conversation. Regardless of what happens at this convention in Minneapolis, McCain people are going to be involved. They're going to make they're going to at least state their concerns and where they're at with this thing. Same way on the Democratic side. I mean, my gosh, they're not going to do anything probably until after the first of the year anyway, and they're going to have lots of impact on just how this process shakes out.
Jim, big reform, minor reforms.
I don't think it's clear that there's enthusiasm or certainly not consensus on the Democratic side for an overall change in the scheduling. Shortening the period, starting later, I think there's a lot of support for. There definitely are those on the Democratic side who support something like the NAS plan with rotation, particularly if some degree of early states with retail politics is preserved. But it's not clear yet that there's consensus for that. There certainly was not 4 years or 8 years ago, and we discussed that at length both times. I would say that there are elements within the process, not beyond just the scheduling, that there is a great deal of interest in changing among many Democrats, particularly, for example, supporters of Senator Clinton question the caucus process. Not just because of the outcome, but obviously that's always a motivator in politics, but just because of the much smaller number of voters you get in a caucus process, and the way the caucuses were conducted in some states.
And because it excludes people who can't be there that day, particularly
Particularly
servicemen
service
abroad
people
who can't
overseas,
people work nights.
let alone people who work shifts,
Right.
and so on. Now, we dealt with some of that this time in Nevada by having a 24-hour caucus cycle, because people work on a 24-hour cycle in Las Vegas, that's for sure.
Right, and moving moving into the casinos even with.
And you could
polling.
find a way, you could find a way, if you worked at it, to represent, let's say, soldiers and sailors overseas. You could use absentee ballots together with a caucus process, something like that.